From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast. And I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you? What challenges did you encounter? What hard thing was placed in front of you? Did it get the better of you this week? Or did you come out victorious this week? If you did not come out victorious, what lessons did you learn from that failure, right? Don't let a failure go by without extracting a perfectly good lesson out of it. That would be silly. Make it a waste of time, and we don't want to do that. Now, if you're new here, as I said, my name is Chris Terrell, and I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic dieting. Well, yo-yo dieting to be more precise. Up, down, down again. Before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, lasting changes to my actual lifestyle, my actual routines, my system of belief, my social setting, my cultural setting, my environment. All of these things resulting in not just temporary changes, but those on a more permanent side of the scale. Isn't that the kind of weight loss you're looking for? I don't know about you. I didn't want to gain it back. I just wanted to lose it and keep it off. Sounded like a great plan. How about you? What do you think? You want to lose it and gain it back? Or do you want to lose it and keep it off? One of the keys to learning how to keep it off, I have learned, is you must learn of the levers of an effective weight management system. You got to know what levers you can pull, what switches you can flip, what dials you can turn. Many people think it is something as simple as like, oh, I'll just cut out carbs and exercise all the time. If that were the solution, we would have seen that, right? I think we all know just exercising more and eating healthy is not the solution. We know that. We know it. And yet, we often try to turn to that one, right? I know why we turn to that one. It's because those of us that have lost weight, when we try to turn around and explain it to you, we discover how difficult it is to actually take this stuff and write it down and explain it. I have made it my full-time job for years to figure out how to explain how to lose weight. This is remarkably hard. This is so difficult. This has been the single greatest challenge of my life. It has been by far the hardest thing I have ever had to do is to figure out how to explain what I did in a way that not only another person would understand, but they could then do so that you could get the same results I have. It's hard. It's hard. Now, I have learned a lot as I do this, as I've had to continually come up with the program and then work it with people and then see what worked, go, okay, let's do more of that, see what didn't work and go, we're going to do less of that. How can we do it better and different? Then with the next group of people, let's go. All right, we get more success. All right, that's better. What worked? Let's do more of that, make it more efficient. What didn't work? Okay, let's do less of that or find a different way to do it. Rinse, repeat over and over and over again. Every single version, I'm getting better and better and better and better at explaining this and helping people to understand it and then subsequently do it to get the same results I have. This podcast, by the way, is a big part of that plan. This podcast is a big part of that plan because I want you getting your mind in the right headspace of I am changing my life. I am not just cutting out carbs. I am making shifts to my life. I've been listening to this crazy guy on a podcast talk about weight loss for a year, and he seems to be just as excited as he was a year ago, if not more so, because I am. All right? I want you to start shifting your thinking. I recently have had 3 different people tell me this in the last week. I have never had to think this much about weight loss as I ever have before. And these are 3 people that are making kick-ass progress. And I was like, yes, you get it. You see it. Yes, you should be thinking about this all the time. And it's hard because the mind doesn't want to think about it. Because you're convinced, oh no, it'd be disordered eating if I'm thinking about losing weight all the time. That's a disorder. I didn't call it a disorder when all I thought about was getting food the moment I was done eating food, right? I never thought it was a disorder the other way. I never said I had an overeating disorder. No. But the moment I started thinking too much about dieting, oh no, my brain's like telling me all these terrible things like I have an eating disorder. When no, I didn't. It was just my brain was fighting back because it was used to thinking and operating a certain way. It had a certain logic. My brain used to believe that eating carbs would make me gain weight. That's what my brain used to believe. My brain no longer believes that. It now understands how I was incorrect, even though I fervently believed it. Not only did I believe it, I would tell it to other people as if it was the truth, right? And so on this journey of discovery for me that has continued past weight loss, it wasn't enough for me to figure out how to lose it myself. I've had to figure out how to get other people to lose it. I have come up with a program I'm getting ready to launch in my guild, and I have 16 levers of success. I am going to give you 3 of them today. I'm going to give you 3 of the levers that you need to know how to adjust and what they do, because if you know how to adjust them, you will be able to get different results in your life. I've been working this with several of my one-on-one clients, and I'm really excited about it to see how it's working. And so I'm wanting to take this out even further and even further. So let's talk about one of the levers that you can pull to help you control your body weight. And it is, oh wait, before I get to that, actually, I'm sorry. I just need to quickly interject and remind you to come join my free Facebook group. If you're not in that, you can find a link to that in the show notes, or go to christerrellcoaching.com, scroll down, you see a link to a free Facebook group. Come on in. I'd love to have you there. Go live every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, except I'm not going to do that not this week, but the week after, because I'm getting married, by the way, that weekend before. So I'm going to be out of town, and I'm sorry, I love y'all, but I am not going to be here the day after that on my wedding, because I'm taking my me time. All right, back to it. The lever that you need to pull. Eating frequency. The eating frequency lever. You see, this is how often or when you eat. Many of us, we start thinking about the food. Now, people think of it, there's this term out there, you've probably heard of it. It's called intermittent fasting. You know, it's where you just don't eat for a arbitrarily picked period of time, and then you eat within another arbitrarily picked period of time, resulting in what we call an eating window and a fasting window. I fast every day. People love to ask me, Chris, what do you think about intermittent fasting? I'm like, I think it's great. You know what? In fact, I think it's so great, I do it every single day. After I'm done eating at the end of the day, I do not eat again for at least 8 or 9 hours, sometimes even as much as 10, until the next day when I eat when I get hungry. Like, that's my intermittent fasting. I just do it while I sleep. I'm like, I could fast during the day, or I could fast when I sleep. I've just chosen to fast when I sleep. Works out great. Anyway, but intermittent fasting, another way you could think of that is it's called time-restricted eating. It is a way that you can control the caloric intake into your body, and by saying, I can only eat between this time and this time, or at 8 p.m., I'm not going to let myself eat anymore, or 7 or 8 or 10 or whatever, right? People pick different arbitrary numbers. It doesn't really matter, honestly. It's whatever you'll do. Whatever helps you that doesn't feel overly restrictive and you can do when life is hard, go with that plan. I like it. Let's talk about eating frequency and how you can adjust it. Oh, wait. One more benefit, why it matters. We talked about you control when you eat, but also because it'll restrict the calories. But the other thing you got to think about is when is your, I'm going to use the word metabolism, when is your metabolism at its highest, right? Metabolism doesn't mean what you think it means. I have a whole lesson on that in the guild. Don't have time to get into it. It's like a 2-hour thing. But metabolism doesn't mean what you think it means. But you can think of metabolism in the sense of pushing the gas down on your car. And so your body is a car, and you just never get to turn it off. So when a car is idling, we all know, it uses less gas than when you're, let's say, pushing the accelerator down to keep going. And we also know that if you're in start and stop traffic all the time, you're using more gas than if you were on the highway going at a steady and consistent speed. We all know this. Think of your metabolism as very much the same thing. So when you're pushing the gas pedal down, your body is burning more energy, more calories, more gas, as opposed to when you let off on it. But again, your body can never be turned off. So if you're not accelerating, you're just idling. So you use less gas. So when you're sleeping, you're burning calories just at idle, just sitting there all the time. Well, why would you eat more calories at night when you're not burning it as much? You don't have as much going out because you're just sitting around chilling, watching a great TV show, and then you're going and sleeping, right? Like you're having a grand old time living your best life, not moving for like 10 hours. You don't need as much food then. Instead, I'd rather you have the food, especially the carby foods, during the daytime when you're constantly hitting the gas pedal, right? I'm not saying you have to do that. What I'm saying is sometimes you need to make adjustments to when you eat to influence when the fuel is entering your body at different times. This can help break a plateau. All right, let's talk about the next weight loss lever. I got to decide which way I want to say that. I don't really know which way I want to say that. Anyway, the weight loss lever, number 2, which is the one that you need to pull. All right, I have a whole list in front of me. I'm just going to pick them at random. We're going to go with exercise types. Okay, number 8 on the list, exercise types. The exercise type makes a difference. And you don't have to constantly be changing this, by the way. It's just knowing when to pull it and knowing how it can be adjusted. What are all the settings of that lever? And when should you make the change? Like as far as which one should you pick? So let me give you a few examples. Let's say you're hitting a plateau and the scale's not moving and you're like, all right, I don't really want to lower my food. It's like, great. What are you doing for your exercise? Well, I've been doing this strength training routine for like 3 months. All right, great. Have you changed it up much? No, not really. All right, well, tell you what. Why don't you take one of your days of strength training and switch it to an elliptical day and really get some cardio? And then for your strength training routine on the other 2 days, let's completely change it up. Like instead of doing all the machines, let's switch over and throw in some more free weights. And let's do some weights that hit some other muscles that you aren't normally hitting. Or maybe it's like, hey, you've been riding the stationary bike. Why don't we have you hop over to using the elliptical, right? We'll just even change up the cardio right there. The reason why this can be important and why it can help you if you've sort of stuck and you got a plateau is it can cause your body to adapt in a new way. Every time you do something over and over and over and over and over again, your body is striving to adapt to it, to make it as effortless as is possible. This is both psychological and physiological. Your body will make physiological adaptations to make the activity easier and easier to do if you do it on repeat. That's why if you walk 10,000 steps a day at work, it doesn't burn the same amount of calories as it did a year ago because it's actually easier for you to do than it was then. So what happens, though, is when your body is optimizing in one way, it is becoming less optimized in others. As an example, when I was running all the time, I was really good at doing sustained heart rate stuff for a long period of time. But what was happening, because I was spending so much time doing that, my strength, my muscle strength was reducing, especially my upper body strength, because I wasn't working it out all the time. I was just sort of maintaining it best. And what happens is when I injured myself and I switched up fitness just recently, I couldn't run. I'm coming up on 2 months of not being able to run from this injury to now I'm just doing strength training and I'm having massive changes. My body is changing very rapidly, actually. It's kind of cool to see how quickly it's been changing. And a lot of this, I've changed nothing else other than I've just shifted the type of fitness, which triggered a new adaptation. If you're losing weight, your body could be optimizing. It now might not be burning as many calories as it used to. And so by changing up the routine, it could be introducing more calories out because it's a harder routine. So if you're stuck, be looking at that exercise type lever. It might be time to give it a change. All right, let's talk about the third lever. Now, before I tell you about the third lever here, I need to let you know this is a time-sensitive one. So if you're listening to this sometime in the future, this doesn't matter to you. But it is Friday, the 3rd of November. On Monday, what's that, the 4th, 5th, 6th, the price of the Guild goes up from $40 to $50 a month. The annual price goes up accordingly as well. So if you are wanting to get in at the lower price, if you join the Guild prior to the price switch, you get to keep your price forever. All right, and as long as you don't cancel, you get to keep that price. And also, many of you I know are Guild members that listen. I want to make sure everybody that's in the Guild knows. This doesn't affect you at all. The price you have now is the price you're going to keep. As long as you're active in the Guild, you get to keep that price. So just wanted to make sure everybody knows. So if you're thinking about joining the Guild, if you've been curious about getting that weight loss support that goes above and beyond what you get here in the podcast and also adds in the layer of community, you can join that now by going to theguildofchampions.com and you can lock in the rate before it goes up. All right, let me give you the third one. Oh, I got 3 of them. I don't know which one I want to do. All right, these are all 3 really good ones. We're going to go with the boundary enforcement sensitivity setting. So within you have a setting for when you should enforce a boundary. And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with weight loss? Well, here's the thing. Many of us that were very overweight, food was a coping mechanism for stress, right? So how do we deal with this? We need to get rid of the triggers that are creating the stress. We have to learn how to master those triggers. And so one of the triggers could be like, I need to enforce a boundary. Because if I don't enforce this boundary, I'm going to feel taken advantage of. And since I feel taken advantage of, I'm going to feel mad and angry and defiant, but I don't want to express that to this other person. So rather than channeling that energy over to the other person, I'm going to go turn my energy into this food and distract myself from it. And I'm going to turn my unhappiness with them inward towards myself by doing something that I believe I shouldn't do. I don't know. That happened to me, but maybe I'm crazy. So what I've realized is I had to reduce the effect of that on my journey. So I had to learn how to actually stop the feeling of feeling like I was being taken advantage of by learning how to enforce boundaries. But I sucked at it. I was terrible. I didn't know when I should do it. I didn't know when I shouldn't do it. So when I started fiddling with it, sometimes I was enforcing a boundary when I really should have just let it slide. And then other times I wasn't enforcing it when I definitely should have said something. And then sometimes I did it at the right time, but I was just a little bit too heavy-handed. And when I did it, I could have maybe softened it up a bit. And sometimes I was being too gentle that it just didn't have the desired effect. I had to learn how to set boundaries. And within your mind is that setting. And it's how do you set it in such a way where it's like, okay, I know when I should be setting a boundary. I know when I should be enforcing it. I know to what intensity I should be enforcing the boundary. Y'all, this is a big deal on weight loss, because when you start getting mastery over boundary setting and you get your sensitivity setting dialed in just right, what this enables you to do is to reduce the sources of stress in your life, which has an overall effect of reducing how much you would then want to stress eat, which has even more rollover effects, because now if you're not wanting to stress eat, you're not going to have that temptation being added already to the big pile of temptations in your life, many of which you are hopefully removing by getting those triggering foods out of your house. We're attacking this from multiple angles. And the emotional eating, we have to get to the root cause and deal with the source by cutting to where the stress is getting in. And in many cases, you're the reason the stress is getting into your life because you are not setting boundaries when you should, and then you're not enforcing them. And you're letting sometimes people walk all over you that shouldn't be, and you're not saying a word. In fact, you're saying, thank you, please come again. And you're then getting through it by eating food. Again, if you're anything like how I was, that's my experience. I've heard a lot of other people share their unique versions of this story. And these weight loss levers, you learn how to pull them and change your life. Like literally change your life. It is hard to express how different I am than I was 5 years ago. There's not enough video and photo evidence of it, unfortunately, because I hid from cameras. There's not even a lot of evidence I used to exist. I mean, there's evidence on paper. I got my name on things. There's audio recordings, but like only certain things with work. It's just pieces. Just pieces. Sometimes I wonder, I'm about to go on a tangent. You're going with me. Thanks. How much did documenting my own life help? I've thought of that lately. It started with me just buying this little GoPro and turning it on and just talking to it. I didn't know who I'd show the footage to, if anybody. I just thought I'd have it. And I tried sharing it to a few people, but nobody cared. But I was like, but you know what? I liked making it. I liked having it. So I kept it. And I just kept talking to it. And then I realized I had a really nice photo camera that also did video, and I've never used the video features. So I turned it around towards me, and it just started talking to it. And then I thought, well, I've been doing this on GoPro. Let's do it on TikTok. Let's just talk. See, maybe somebody will want to listen. So I started talking on TikTok, and people started listening. So I thought, well, maybe I'll do a podcast. I like talking. Talking's kind of fun, and I've been looking for a reason to buy some podcasting equipment. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe I'll do a podcast. And hey, y'all, on TikTok, you want me to do a podcast? Like 8 people, like, yeah. So it's like, great. So I made an episode, and it was fun. I just sat down and hit record and started talking. And I was like, this is great. I figured out how to edit it. I had no idea what I was doing. And I put it out there. And then, all behold, like 100 people listened to it or downloaded it. I don't even know what that meant at the time. It doesn't mean much. But I was like, cool. I'll make another one. So like, I don't remember if it was a week, 2 weeks later, I made another one. So people listened to it. I made 6 of them. And then life got busy. And so I stopped. But I kept doing that whole TikTok thing. I just kept talking to a camera. I just kept talking to it. And then people were like, hey, you can do a podcast again? And I was like, well, I'll bring it back. I thought people are asking. Yeah, I'll bring it back. I'll just start talking about it some more. I sat down and I hadn't done it in a while. So I was like, well, what am I going to talk about? Like, I kind of told people the basics already. I mean, the first 6 episodes, I felt like had a lot of the answers you needed to like get you started. But I was like, well, I've learned a lot over the last little while. I'm not done, but I've learned quite a bit. I mean, y'all, I was still losing weight when I started this podcast. The early episodes, I was still like peeling off the last handful of pounds. And I was like, well, I'll share what I've learned just for funsies because this has changed my life and I want to change yours. I'm just here's what I've learned. Take it and use it or change it. I don't know. Just do something. Just don't give up. Don't sit there. Don't sit in your butt twiddling your thumb saying like, I wish one day someone would lose the weight for me. Like, that's never going to happen. Just go. I don't care. Just go. Right? You just get started. We'll fix it as you go along. Just get started. And that's what I did with the podcast. I just got started. I just started posting. I'm like, I'll figure it out as I go. I mean, and I just kept working on it. Then one day I had this fun little idea. Oh, I'm going to do this journaling one. This will be really fun. And I really enjoyed it. And then I had all sorts of other little fun experiments. Some of you might remember when I tried Tactical Tuesdays and Maintenance Mondays. That was a disaster. I mean, that was a workload disaster. I did not think that through. I mean, I thought I did, but it was so much harder than I thought it was. I think I made it like 2 weeks before I just couldn't keep up with the workload. A podcast has a lot more work that goes into it than you might imagine. It doesn't seem like it, but when you start doing them every week, you start noticing. But I just kept documenting. And I just kept talking. And y'all kept listening. And so then I'd start hearing from you. And I'd start getting emails from people saying, Chris, your podcast changed my life. Your podcast helped me lose 100 pounds. Chris, because of your podcast, I discovered journaling. And I had some really life-changing things come from it. Thank you. And I just started getting them. And I was like, well, this makes me want to keep going. But then I'd get the messages of, Chris, I'm struggling. This thing is getting me. And I'm like, it got me too. I haven't talked about that yet. That did get me. Let me tell you how I got through it. But then I'd see some other people, their situation was different than mine. I was like, oh, how'd you get through it? And they'd tell me their story, and then I'd learn other stories. I'm like, well, hey, let me tell you about this other story. Oh, well, let me learn about the concepts. Let me understand why this works. Because you got to be able to adapt it to fit you, because your life's different than me. You don't have the same problems I did. You have a lot of them. A lot of us had shared problems, but the particulars about our life is different. Take 100 people, all the same weight and size and gender, age, all of it. But their life is different. And so the solution's going to be different, even if it's all reminiscent of the same thing. It's all going to be applied slightly differently. And I started to see that. And so I started learning as much as I can about humans. How do we change? I had to understand, why was I able to lose the weight? Why was I able to do it? I've never been able to do it before. And it's not from a lack of trying. I had tried plenty. Why did it work this time? I know it did, but I know what I remember, but I don't know why it worked. And I needed to learn that because I just keep thinking, this is what I think about every day. I remember being the guy sitting on my couch, watching Biggest Loser, and just wishing that I could have something like this show to save me. I could have something that would help me find the fire that I knew was in me somewhere that I just didn't know how to light. I figured all the stuff is there. I don't have a lighter. That's what I need. I need someone to light the fire. And I just remember being that person. And I'm eating as I'm feeling the feeling. I'm like feeling worse about being big as I'm watching the show. Looking back, it was a very twisted relationship with that show. It didn't actually motivate me now that I think about it. Anyway, I remember being big and just saying to myself, I guess it's just how it's going to be for me. I'm just going to get comfy. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to be happy. I really did do everything I could to be happy. It's not like I was walking around miserable all the time. But alone at night by myself or all my troubles to bother me. I just didn't want to be bothered by my troubles. And I'd unfortunately discovered that food worked really good for that. I was a Mormon. I wasn't allowed to drink. Maybe it's a good thing I was a Mormon. I might have became a drinker. Who knows? Instead of drinking, I chose food, video games, movies. Just ran from my problems. Constantly getting triggered, running to food. Blaming the triggers. Not blaming myself, which I should have been. I should have been going self. When are you going to change? When are you going to take ownership of this, But I wasn't saying that until I was. But I started documenting myself, as I said, after I started changing. And I think the documentation made a difference. I think the journaling, what I wrote down in my books, I think it made a difference. I said to myself on my journey that the weight loss phase is the halfway point. When I hit my goal weight, I'm only halfway done. The finish line is when I've kept the weight off for as long as it took me to lose it, which is the exact day is 2 years and 2 months. I just round up to 2.5. It's 2 years and 2 months. I have crossed that finish line. It actually snuck up on me. Now I knew when I was on the middle of my journey, I knew I had figured something out. I knew I had, but I didn't know how to explain it to anybody else. I just knew how it worked in my head, but I knew I figured something out. And I wanted to see if it worked with other people, and it did. But I wanted to be able to say, I'm going to teach you how to lose weight and keep it off with confidence. Not, I'm going to help you lose weight and keep it off, probably, more than likely. Yeah, you'll keep it off. No, I wanted it to be, hi, my name is Chris Terrell, and I'm going to teach you how to lose the weight forever. That's what I want to be able to say to you and mean it. And I told myself, unfortunately, you're never going to know. You're never going to know if you could do it for the rest of your life until your life ends. Unfortunately, that's going to be the only way you'll know, but by then it's too late. You can't do anything with it. So when is enough enough? When have you kept it off enough that you're going to be comfortable bragging about it? Self. And as I went back to what I decided on the journey, I said, when I kept it off as long as it took me to lose it, because I took my sweet time losing it. It took 2 years and 2 months. It took a long time. I was like, so you know what? So be it. It'll take that long. If I can keep it off for 2 years and 2 months, I'll have several holiday cycles in there. I guarantee I'm going to have some hard things going on in there that'll challenge me that normally would always have made me gain my weight back. If I can make it through all that, I think that's pretty good because I've never done it before and most other people don't do it either. And so I set off on my quest. While teaching everybody how to lose weight, I was on my own simultaneous behind the scenes quest. How do I maintain my weight to a 5-pound window for 2 years and 2 months on purpose to prove to myself that I know how to control my weight? And I got to go through some hard shit. And I decided, well, if I'm going to go through some hard shit, let's choose it. So I decided to move back home and work for myself. Starting a business, turns out, is way more stressful than I anticipated it would be. But it worked out. I was a single guy. I wondered, is the only reason I could lose weight and maintain it because I was single and lived alone? I wondered. I'm about to have stepkids. I've been living with them for a little bit. I, for all intents and purposes, live in a household with kids. And I'm about to be married. And my body has improved through all of it. I've gone through really hard times in it. I've gone through injuries. I've gone through sicknesses. I've gone through the stress of running a business. And I've maintained it. I've kept it off. It's stayed off. And I've been just using the same things I figured out when I was losing weight. I've just been learning how to explain it and how to write it down through just copying it and replicating it with myself. I've used the exact same system I used to lose my weight. I've used the exact same system to help me get a better job. And then I used it to make a career change and leave that job because I discovered, well, why did I set my sights so low? And then I used the same system to maintain my weight. And I used the same system to find the relationship of my dreams. I feel like I've been struck by lightning every day. I didn't even know this was possible. And it wasn't an accident. I know what I did. It was on purpose. And I've used it to fix my financial situation. Like really fix it. I used it to change my entire lifestyle. I used it to work on my emotional eating, to get past that. This system, I've used it, I've replicated. It's the same system I used when I was losing weight. I've just continually been testing it for the last several years. And I have been biting my tongue because I just want to talk about it all the time. But I had to be able to come here and look to you in the camera and say, I am test subject 0. And I know what I did, and I want to tell you about it. And I believe it'll work for you. I know it'll work for you. And that's why I created the Guild, to teach as many people as I can what I've figured out. And now that I've crossed the 2 year and 2 month mark, the chains are off. The brakes are off. I don't have to hold myself back anymore. I know damn well I've done something that is not normal. I know that. I'm not immune to it. I've just been biting my tongue about it because I had to walk the talk. I didn't want to talk about it until I proved it. I wanted people to be able to be like, he actually did it. And I had to be able to have the most important person in my life say it to me. And that was the guy in the mirror. I needed the guy in the mirror to be able to look to me and say, you did it. You did it. You said you were going to lose the weight almost 5 years ago. And then you said you'd keep it off. And you've done it. You know how you've done it, and you can prove it because you've gotten other people to do it too. And now you're working even the next layer of teaching others how to teach people to do it. You've done it. And this is why I do what I do. This is why the podcast is still here and why it's not stopping. This is why I'm never going to stop. Is because this feeling of being able to look myself in the mirror and say, you did it. I want that for you. I want you to have it. But if you quit, you'll never get it. I am not interested in helping you get there faster than you need to. I'm interested in you getting there. And I'm interested in you never quitting because I want you to have your moment. I want you to have your moment when you pull out your journal and you write a letter to yourself saying, thank you. We did it. We got it done. We did the impossible. We've become the person we saw on the TV screens that we would think, that would never be me. We did it. I know that I was nothing special. I didn't have some unique gift. I just figured out something. I figured out a system. I figured out how to transfer my success. And I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, of many, many, many people that have taught me many, many things, that when it all came together with the final keystone bits of information that my father gave me on his deathbed, that put it all together, we were able to do it. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm never going to stop, because I want you to have your moment. I want you to one day walk to yourself in the mirror and say,